Hey, welcome to the Bizarre Briefing for June 2016. I'm Bryce Castillo, joined with Brant Hughes.
Hi.
And our fill-in guest, Roberto Villegas. How are you?
Hey there, everybody.
John Tilton is in California seeing his family on vacation.
Ooh. Or something.
Something like that.
Hey, look, vacations are important. I think it's important to see family and say hi to people.
Not important when it comes at the expense of this show.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fair. I mean, I'm remoting in, so.
I think he was going to try to remote in, it sounded like, and then there was an event happening right now.
Because of course.
Because of course there is. In the middle of a day on a Monday. What? So, welcome, Roberto. If you don't know, Roberto runs audio on Scam School a lot. Is a good friend of ours. We've done a lot of shows with and Roberto and CosmicRadio.tv, his podcast network. Be sure to check that out.
Cinematography available in your own RSS feeds.
Yeah. We did Jump Point for a while before Charles and Michael and I forget Rosa filled my space.
And you're always welcome to come back. It's not like that. It's not like the seat just magically disappeared. It's just sort of, whenever Bryce wants to come back, he's always welcomed.
Yeah, hit me up sometime because I would love to be back on. But this is the Bizarre Briefing. This is where we talk behind the scenes of the Scam School YouTube channel, the Scam Stuff store, the Modern Rogue show, our giveaway videos, Scam School Remix. And thank you for checking out for another month.
Yeah.
What do we want to... We've got Roberto here. Maybe let's start off talking about sort of where Roberto fits in with like the whole crew.
Like, where do I fit in the bizarre magic?
And I'd be really interested to hear some of your experiences since, like we get a tremendous amount of feedback, like, immediately on our work because, we sit there and we put these episodes together and people just spew out garbage out of their mouths all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's nice, sometimes it's not.
I still remember like the one time Brant and I were just kind of hanging out. I think we were filming a cinematography thing. And I talked about this on my podcast at one point, and we're just going through all the YouTube comments because Brant, I don't know if you've talked about this, but you typically look, to the comments on the YouTube channel, either accept or decline things.
First stuff flagged as spam and whatever.
Right. And so you just get this like smattering of both, awesome show, bro, to, hey, check out my cool new YouTube channel. And it's amazing to see what things just come down the pipeline in a comment, and then to go down and figure out who those users are and to figure out the stuff that they're posting. And we just like went down a bizarre rabbit hole for that.
Yeah, but yeah, so you do audio, and the interesting thing I think about that is that, at least with my episodes, like, what the people hear from the episode is not entirely indicative of your recording process, since I go through and, mix through every track of dialogue and all of that stuff to make it, to clean it up a little bit and sound pristine. So really, your only like direct feedback is through us telling you something, and at least in my experience, been pretty sparse.
It's interesting because, I mean, for those who don't know, I tend to work the live audio. Like, everything you see as a final product is thanks to these two guys here. I have ultimately no input in terms of that. I mean, I do ask, typically I may throw an idea for an ad or two towards, Brand or Bryce's way, just in terms of like, man, you should really continue this, or it'd be really funny to see this. But typically for me, it's, if you ever see me at a shoot, whereas you'll see, Brant and Bryce moving around with cameras and stuff like that, I literally have this pair of headphones on, and I'm just, looking at meters and kind of making sure it's at a certain decibel level and making sure there's nothing else kind of going on, because we use a lot of wireless stuff that can, cause a little bit of interference here and there, and sort of making sure that above all else that Brant and Bryce get as clean of an audio signal as possible.
Yeah.
It's weird knowing that I have a credit and that I am there, but that ultimately a lot of the front facing stuff you don't see me on, just because, again, a lot of things I do are more at that moment. It's hearing things and judging. Is the music bleeding in? Is this enough of a signal that can at least be put through some sort of filter that can get just the bare voice? Because a lot of people don't know, but when we do record at real bars, and typically those aren't the best sound environments.
Not so much.
Yeah, it's definitely a spectrum. But even in some of our worst sort of scenarios. Like I think we might get to this a little later, but one of the videos that we came out with this month, we shot it in an incredibly loud. It had been louder at that bar than it had ever been because there was a live band. And the audio still ended up coming out great, partly because of your ability to gauge what's going on every channel.
Yeah, a lot of it is looking at, this is my job at a scam school shoot, and anything I tend to do is looking at a lot of decibel meters, and noticing that. And this is now technical talk, and I might as well get into this. Usually on a decibel meter, you'll see sort of this levels of of certain dB, like -6, whatever, and there's always a noise floor at about minus 30 something. Very very briefly. Now headphones will amplify that, and I'll hear everything, and so it's kind of a I have to almost remind myself that things I hear in the headphones aren't truly what they are in the post mix, because it'll sound way more amplified than anything else because I have the volume jacked up so I can hear it. And so a lot of it becomes judgment saying, okay, well, when they talk, they're at this amplitude. When they're not talking, they're at this amplitude. And to figure out that kind of difference, say, well, okay, you can hear them. You can hear a clean signal, but you still hear this noise floor. And even I think that's sometimes appropriate because sometimes if you don't have that, people don't think you're actually there. And you're doing this weird ADR kind of thing.
And what's tough when you're in that audio recording role, because that's something I've done multiple times, is that what you're listening to during the recording of a show is a single mixed down feed of all of the audio channels.
Yep.
So you get into a tough spot of not there's a lot of bleed. We try to keep people close. So Brian is very loud, and so you hear him a lot on all the other channels. And the tough thing is kind of drifting with people who aren't talking very much because it looks like they're talking, and you're
a lot of it is very much
stuff.
Staring at when the person's talking, staring at the channels, and we use an H6 there on stuff. The Zoom H6 it sort of has this sort of LCD sort of display that shows all the different audio channels going on at different volumes. And a lot of it just becomes staring at this, knowing, okay, this person's talking. Let me look at their signal while they're talking. All right, it's fine, and even being ready to adjust on the fly, because even at times it will come to things like for example, the two worst audio moments I have, and my biggest sort of if I have critiques to myself that I'm always really paranoid about. It's always at the end of an episode, at the end of a recording, when they're like, "Yeah, we succeeded the trick, woo!" Or the the toast that Brian typically would do is toast me, and that's usually when things will hit peak, and it's I can't adjust 4 channels at the same time, and so it becomes a sort of balancing act of accepting that certain things are just going to peak and certain things are not, and trying to find that happy balance, because it becomes whenever Brian laughs, and that's one of my one of the things I've learned is that Brian just has this very boisterous laugh that just immediately hits the red no matter what volume setting I have.
I deal with that on the podcasts a lot. Of Brian has a real big range of well, sometimes he'll be talking real quiet like this, but sometimes he'll talk like this.
Yeah.
And at some point there's not so much you can do. And kind of what doesn't help is the Zoom H6 is really nice and really portable, but all of the channels have these rotary knobs. Compared to a traditional mixer would have faders that you could more easily handle. But
handle at least in a sort of tandem session.
Right.
I think one of the hardest challenge I ever had in live audio was definitely during and I don't know if I talked about this, was definitely during the South by event.
Sure.
Because it became this sort of one channel to rule them all situation, and so I was literally balancing the one channel through 5 different, through all the different inputs that happened, and it became this okay, just keep it where I could keep it, and it became this really delicate balancing act, because if you think kind of managing 4 channels, separate voices is easy, I mean ultimately at least you can at least kind of split the difference. It's harder when you have this one channel and 5 different volume inputs that can vary from volumes from Justin to Brian to Doctor the Time to Tom to even the band, and it became this very very crazy thing of just riding the dial throughout the entire event. I don't know if you can see me. You can see me. I don't even know you can see me on camera. I think that's. I don't. I think you see.
Probably briefly.
Briefly, you might be able to see me.
There was definitely a moment at the beginning of that episode where you gave the thumbs up, and I'm pretty sure that was in the episode. It was pretty good.
Yeah. But I think we talked a little bit about this right after the South by episode happened. But you definitely ended up doing double duty than what I kind of expected you would have to. Just because partially of a time constraint and also because the board was separate from the band.
Yeah.
You kind of had to also be there, dude, for that.
Yeah, it was very eye-opening for me because like going into things, I always get nervous that I don't know what I think I know. And I always second guess myself and misjudge sort of things. But the minute it was all over, it was like I realized, oh, I can actually work a board. And I didn't even know I could work a board. And it became this like, learning things of aux channels and all this stuff just right there in the thick of it, in the middle of it. Because even during it, I had actually screwed up their monitors. And that's why they had to like readjust the volume like before they went live if you read the event itself. Because I had literally fucked up their monitor feed by accident, not even knowing what I was doing. Like, oh shit, okay. And then I figured it out and I'm was like hyper on point. But I even learned that your job is a little hard too sometimes because I had to cue at least some live music and some live the stuff like that you would typically do when it comes like go time for that kind of show.
Yeah, for the live podcasts, definitely. There's a lot of media management when you're taking on a role of a live producer. But it's also something where it's not like you're doing like super hard computations on the fly. It's just all of these kind of, basic computer skills that you've got, you have to do like a million of them at once. And if you had another two hands, then like it'd be a piece of cake. But you've got switching and all sorts of stuff going on. So it's not easy for anybody to, and the difficulty comes in just how many things are happening at once.
Right. And the idea that it has to happen like now, and especially for that event, we had a very, very tight window in the end of it all.
Open Bayou asked, does the Zoom H6 recorder record on a separate track or mix it on editing, or do you record the H6 into the camera?
So I can say this because I have my own H6 and I know for a fact it actually multi-tracks it. So basically on the H6, if that graphic are up, basically you'll see the 4 channels there, the 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's actually a module on top that you could technically add a 6 and a 7th XLR channel if you bought the module to add it to it. But you'll notice there that there's the 1, 2, and the 3 and the 4. So you can set it up to have those both be 2 in-pair stereo channels if you wanted to. We typically don't do that for obviously sort of reasons. But what happens is once those are recorded, they're all recorded in parallel on 4 different channels. That sort of makes it easier for these 2 guys here to sort of, single in on a voice. Because usually, even if there's some bleed, it really picks up cleanly the person who has the mic on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, if this were a smaller operation, like a news sort of thing, it would be pretty traditional to have some sort of audio going directly into the camera.
Right.
Like if this were a single camera or some sort of news piece. But generally, we almost always, I'm trying to think of anything other than the live podcasts, which mostly don't have separate audio feeds. Pretty much everything we do has a separate audio recording, or an external audio recording, rather.
Yeah, and I mean, the live podcasting stuff doesn't get edited hardly to any degree. As much as or produce stuff like Scam School or Modern Rogue or something.
Yeah, definitely. Weird Things we do significantly more editing on, just because the pace of that show is a little different. But also that's an audio only show, so that's kind of a different thing. But yeah, the podcasts and the produced YouTube stuff are different in terms of workloads as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of jealous. It seems like fun. It seems like fun working on audio, and I'm over here making decisions with we got to get this weird shot over here because I don't know if I got it.
It's far easier. The hardest part about working with audio, and this is something if I have any sort of critique on being an audio person, that is that you do get blocked away from the world. In
That
that
sounds great.
It is and it isn't. It is when you want to get work done when you're concentrating. It isn't when you don't realize the shoot is done and no one told you. Oh, by the way, Robert, we're done filming. You can stop the recording. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Like it's not a big deal, but that's one of the weird things. It also doesn't help that the volume, and this is something that I've learned as an audio guy, that everyone. My favorite thing being an audio person is that. Any guest that realizes I can hear them, they always make the same comment of like, the audio guy can hear us, right? Like we shouldn't be talking about this super private thing that I have no knowledge of and I don't even give a damn what they're talking about. Because it's always that. The other weird thing is that because Jason and Brian typically share interests that I have, and I love talking with Jason about stuff like that when they're on the show, I'll hear Jason mention something cool that I'm like, I want to chime in. Oh,
but
wait,
you're 100
I'm so
feet
far
over
away,
that
no one
way.
can hear me anyways. And I'll hear a funny comment and laugh, and no one else is laughing around me because here I am in headphone land, hearing everything hyper amplified, hearing everyone talking, and it's like, I want to join the conversation. Oh, that's right, I can't join the conversation. I'm literally like 30 feet away, hiding behind the camera, because no one shall see Robert with his audio things doing this, because that makes boring video.
What's funny about that phenomenon, because I've definitely had that too, of just like, you want to chime in because it sounds like they're right there next to you, and then you look up and they're not even looking at you. It's like that problem feels like something. It's like, well, I don't need to chime in because I'm not near anybody, so let's just listen. It would just leave only ear prints. Even in the moment, you want to be like, oh man, no, yeah, I want to talk about.
Well, because I've already heard from some people who have been on our show that have been guests that have apparently been in like broadcast companies and like real professional. I put that in quotation mark stuff, and they've always said a lot of the sound guys are not as personable, or they're just sort of like, yeah, whatever, and kind of do this. Whereas I always make sure to say hi, introduce myself and stuff. Because I always feel weird that here I am going to attach this little lapel mic to you, and I might run it up your shirt and everything else, and here I am touching you, and I feel like that's always like this weird invasion of space, Yeah. Like I'll joke with Brant all the time and do that just because it's funny, but with somebody I don't know, it's like I'm going to manipulate this because I need to make sure this is in the right position so I can get a clear signal so I can hear you talk so you can have fun in the show. But I'm gonna also, clip this to the back of you, so I might touch your, your butt here and there, not because I, want to feel you up, but because that's the job I got to do today.
Yeah. Is that you jealous about that, Brant? Having to touch people?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm about to say, yeah.
I want to be as far away from everybody as much as possible.
Yeah, you forget the other part of being the audio guy, which is setting up the equipment part. Yeah. See, it's a double-edged sword. Yeah. You have to sort of take everything with it, and it definitely adds a challenge just because like I'm such the guy that I'm like I don't want to impose, and I know I have to do my job, and it's I have to mic this person up, and it's always explaining what the hell I'm going to do, because again, I don't think anyone goes in the bar thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to be on an internet show where they're going to attach a microphone to me.
Mm-hmm. So how long have you been working with the Scam School Austin crew? Has it been since we took over production?
Since day zero, yeah. Since day,
I guess so. So end of 2013. Years.
Yeah, basically when the team switched to Austin, Brian had sort of assembled the team of certain people, and when it came to audio, I guess I was the first one to come to mind just because of my experience in podcasting and everything else. And I think like the first shoot we did was. It was at Nomad, right? I think Nomad Bar, and I think Corey was on those episodes, which made for a fun, bombastic.
Yeah, I want to say Corey and Jason.
Yeah, which Corey, is very animated. Corey Coleman of Double Toasted fame and former Spill fame.
We had two filming days back to back at the Nomad. Right. And I know we shot one episode, and I think that might have been the 100-year-old card wizard trick or whatever with Jason. Maybe I know that was definitely in that first batch, but yeah, we shot 3 episodes that first time.
Yeah, because it was our first time doing it. I don't even know. That's always the one thing I never know is what episodes are coming out when, because when we film typically at a shoot, we try to shoot for at least 4 episodes at the most, and I think we've learned our limit might be 5 because I think there was that. I don't know if you've talked about the
Yeah, we had
the
a
night-
shoot where we shot like 7 episodes, and then
became
at least 2 of them ended up just being scrapped because
that became a night. That
they
was
ended up
that was a
flopping
night
or-
of something.
Yeah.
But regardless of that fact, since this is our first time, we didn't quite know what we were doing, and I didn't know what I was doing in terms of like being live and doing monitoring sound. It turns out, I did pretty okay. Else I wouldn't, still be here, I guess. But hey, look, you never know. I never take anything for granted. And so I'm, my first time I was hyper paranoid because here I am, first and foremost at that time working with wireless for the first time, trying to hear this like interference and going like, and being at this moment of like not knowing how all this stuff works, because that was the first time I used an H6, the first time I'd used a lot of this equipment. And it became this like, because even then, like I didn't get the note from one of you guys to like keep it at -6 dB. And this is like all production stuff. So I can say to a certain degree, this is just sort of broadcast things. So I was like, well, I'll keep it lower than normal because that's what I typically do. Just so that way there's a lot more room to, to do things and to not, because again,
Right.
the worst thing you can do in any audio signal is
be too
peak.
loud and
Yeah, to be blown out because you can't you can repair a lot of stuff. You can't repair blown audio.
Yeah. Well, very cool. We got a couple other things on the list on the topic here on the topic sheet. But hopefully you'll join us, Roberto.
Yeah, of
for the rest
course.
of the show.
Get out.
It's like okay.
We're done with you.
So,
That would be the weirdest thing. Just like, well, it's been a pleasure to have you. Now
No.
we're going to talk about, now we're going to talk about the news.
We just don't say anything. Bryce just hangs up. And then it's like a 2-person show.
Peace.
So if you watch our Friday videos, you'll know we just got back from a pair of live stage shows that occurred within 24 hours of each other in 2 different parts of the country.
I remember
Yeah.
you talking about this at this shoot that you're like, yeah, tomorrow we're going to go fly. I was just like, I can't believe you're doing this at all.
Yeah, I wasn't too. I wasn't like afraid of it because as far as the stage shows go and traveling, like it's not super scary or anything for me, but there were definitely points in it that made me really just distinctly unhappy. So and it was all out of our control, these things. So it's not like, it's I put it on Brian's shoulders or anything. But we the first show was in Northern Virginia, and on our flight to the second show to St. Louis, we had to finish the first show, which started at basically 3 a.m. Tear down the show once it was done and go straight to the airport to catch the 8:45 flight to St. Louis. And once we got there, we checked in, and the gate agent goes, your flight's been delayed.
Oh, no.
To like 11 o'clock, right? Which we did not know because we were driving and didn't check it. And so what would have been like an hour and a half wait in the airport ended up being like 5 hours or so. And it's Baltimore International, so it's a super busy airport, and there's not really any great place to sleep or anything. And we're kind of running on, like, this was kind of the end of our kind of awake period.
You're on fumes at this point.
Yeah. And so between that and they changed the gates and stuff, and we were getting kind of antsy because the flight trackers were saying the plane took off and all sorts of stuff. So that was a point where I was just like, I can't sleep. I don't want to be awake. This is really just bad. This is the part that I
That
do
is
not like.
probably the most miserable part of traveling is when you have to be alert and you don't want to be alert.
Yeah, because there was this like all-nighter sort of mode that I had kind of gotten into, and so your adrenaline takes over, and you don't need to sleep, and you kind of don't even need to eat very much. But once you are in that mode and you are like, well, no, I'm secure enough right now. I could go to sleep right now if I needed to. It's real tough to just like break out of that and get any sort of refreshment.
Well, especially with traveling, it's like for me, whenever I'm flying, I can sleep on a plane, but until I've gotten on the plane, until I'm up in the air, and I don't have to worry about anything else until we land, like I'm hyper awake because just like in the event of like flight gets delayed, gate gets changed, something happens that you have to like booking it moving, else you're gonna miss your thing. And if you fall asleep, and if Brian's like, I'm gonna take a nap too, and then you both wake up like, oh, the plane left, and it's 4 a.m. now.
Right.
What do we do?
Like definitely, apparently Brian was saying that he had texted maybe 6 or 7 different people saying, hey, my plane is leaving at 10:30. Can you just text me then or right before then so that I know and I won't sleep through this thing because I'm super scared and they changed shit on me. So yeah, that was definitely a concern for Brian. I just had a timer. I just set a timer on my phone. I mean,
Smart.
It just seemed like I don't need somebody to text me.
No, I wouldn't even trust it. I would set an alarm or something. Like I set like 8 different alarms if I had to do that kind of thing.
The other sort of really rough point was the second show, which was outside at a Tri-County fair. And there was like a stone amphitheater there, but we ended up, I guess they were using the amphitheater right beforehand, so we got set up on a walkway. If you're watching the video, you can see here on this park's sort of walkway with the whole crowd sitting in the grass, which is sort of a nice, like, that's a nice, idea. But it was definitely over 105-degree heat index that day because it's Missouri in June. So we were just fucking dripping sweat, and that was my first time doing a show that wasn't like on a stage with like a curtain that I can hide behind so that people don't see me a lot.
Yeah, outside shows are kind of weird.
Yeah.
We did one in like a parking lot once.
Brian was saying that in a previous year that he had done this county fair, he had been set up on the back of a flatbed truck.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, there's this weird thing. It's like, well, do I want to stay completely out of sight? Do I want to be very far away from the stage when I'm not needed so that nobody thinks I'm doing anything? Or like, because I don't want to mess up the mystique of like, oh, well, that's his assistant right there. He's just, he's telling him what to do. And it's like, no, man, I don't even know how half this stuff works. I learned how on this trip, I realized one of the things that Brian does on the show is actually a magic trick and not like a weird body thing.
Yeah.
Well, because like one of the things I remember Brian's stage show, especially at the early days. I don't know if obviously the case now because you're there, but a lot of some of the cues were actually foot driven. Like I remember him saying at one point, like he had like special kind of buttons put in his shoe or something like that, where you could trigger your audio cues and stuff like that.
He's got these remotes that I think are made out of like garage clickers or something that can advance the musical cues. In the first show, one of them broke off and just like did not stopped working, like fell off of his shoe, which was a little sloppy. But yeah, that's like the stage show has a surprising amount of like duct tape. Well, not surprising, but like some real old school like fixes and systems in it. And so we did that second show, and we actually got a chance to sleep. And Steve, a diamond clubber, was actually there. He actually came in about halfway through the show. He was on his way driving to Denver or something, and he was like, "Oh, well, this thing is on my way, kind of maybe." So he stopped by, and we went and had food with him, and then we just conked out, and that was it. It's a lot of the discomfort parts of it were just like how much time we spent traveling, and like literally the day before we slept all day so that we could be ready for this 3 a.m. show.
Well, because if you're like, because I was up that late and doing other things, and typically when I'm a bit late, I'll see Brian. If I see Brian tweet, I'm like, oh, why is he? Oh, right, that's right, he's traveling today.
Yeah.
And I'll always, and it's often I'll see that. It's rare that I'll say it, but it was, I can imagine, especially when you have a flight back to back. That's the hard ones because typically when you get a flight and you have a hotel, like, okay, fine. Well, I got the thing done. I can crash the hotel. I can sleep and recharge to a certain degree. But when you have to go from airport, show, and then straight to airport again to make it to another place to do it all over again, it becomes a sort of grind.
Yeah. Watching that video, there was definitely like I got a sense of, oh right, there are some things that I kind of liked about that, but I'm really glad I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah. I probably.
My favorite part is always when I'm on the plane. I could be like, "Yo, everybody, look out! I'm in Chicago today." What? What? Because I'm such a insular person who just stays in my apartment all the time. That's like super novel to me. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, most of the experience is kind of a give or take for me.
Yeah. And it's a lot of it is really just a lot of downtime, especially with these trips. Like the first show was maybe an hour away from the airport, and the second one was like 2 hours away. So it's a lot of just like we're sitting in the car and just we're both listening to music or audiobooks or whatever. Waffleophagus, yes, I did say a 3 a.m. show.
So was that one of those like end of the year school kind of things?
Yeah, it was a graduation lock-in sort of thing.
Yeah, and that venue has hired Brian annually for forever.
Yeah.
It's a really great location.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool. And that crowd is like super, they're always super pumped for that show.
Mm-hmm. And the dude who helps you out, he's awesome.
Yeah. That guy was real cool.
Because usually Brian shows, and I have only had the luck of seeing a live stage performance, I think maybe 3 times total for Brian. All of them are usually fun. It's rare that I don't see the crowd getting into it. Like out of all things Brian does, Brian does a lot of things really well, but out of all of them, for sure, engaging a crowd and making sure that the crowd sort of in the moment ready makes for really, dynamic show. I mean, that show in general is dynamic, and I can only imagine being, behind the scenes of that is nerve-wracking at times.
I mean, a little bit. The way I see it, the way I like frame my role in the show is like mostly I'm taking stuff off stage. Like the bigger contribution is before the show, setting stuff up. Brian, I think has talked about this, but he got kind of a little bit of a stomach bug right before that first show. So because he was contemplating just not taking somebody for these shows, but I ended up setting like 85% of that show up because he was just like not feeling very good. So that's kind of where I see it, is like the big thing is setting up and then just like
hitting your marks.
Yeah, striking stuff off the set. But so in that regard, it's not the worst. Like when you can kind of step back and bigger picture it, it's like that's fine.
No, yeah. I mean, it's especially this is not. I don't think this is your first time. They're not your first time doing a live show.
No, these were number 2 and 3 for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you gotten to the points where you get people to help you out cleaning out the?
We did
the stuff.
So
because that stuff gets gross if you don't have somebody immediately take care of that.
If you haven't seen the show, Brian does the human crazy straw where he puts water, milk, soda, and orange juice in a big vat.
Sometimes beer.
I believe it.
Yeah, I'll believe it too.
And so we did that second show outside, and it's outside, and there's all these signs of like it's a watershed, and there's a riparian buffers and all sorts of like environmental stuff, and so we were just like, I guess I'll just have to clean this up after the show. And thankfully, some people who were like super stoked about the show came by and did us a super solid and cleaned all that stuff out.
Nice.
But Waffleophagus says that would make Dragon Con the first show. I don't count Dragon Con really, because that was like, I mean, I did help with the Dragon Con magic show, but there was another show that I went to that I consider the first, because that was a full stage show.
But yeah, if you don't clean it out like quickly and
it gets
effectively, but also like there ends up being a coating inside of that long tube, and then you have to go clean that out by like wringing it, which I did one day, and it took like 2 hours.
It sounds about right. I mean, that kind of it's the mixture that goes through the tube is a very caustic mixture in general, and that just I've even seeing that the first time I saw this, the whole thing, it's just pouring at one point it's and there's gasoline in here, that's what I expected just to go through it, because who cares?
Mm-hmm.
That might be dangerous.
It probably
I mean,
would.
he drinks it. So
he drinks it at the
Yeah,
end.
what is he he has lighter fluid in his
I mean, at the end of the day, how much fuel do you think Brian's ingested? Probably a lot.
He's built up a tolerance.
Yeah. He's going to be like that guy.
But at that point, that would be good reasoning to limit your exposure, maybe.
He's gonna be like that guy in the East who wanted to be like a transformer, so he drank a bunch of gasoline for a long time and built up a tolerance to it.
Yeah, sounds about right.
That's basically Brian.
Gosh. Yeah. So if you want to see the vlog that we did of that, check out the Scam School channel on YouTube. We put a video, and there's a giveaway for the fire eating book. So check that out.
Riddick in chat room says basically it's the recipe for grog from Monkey Island, and yes, it is. Yeah. That is what it is.
Yeah. So Brant, I see you got a sort of you kind of an existential sort of question.
It looks dire, doesn't it?
I'm a little afraid. I hope you're doing well. Are you doing okay?
I mean, I've had better, but I'm fine, I guess. Yeah, I mean, that's more dire than the topic actually is. Okay. So I wanted to ask, and this I feel like Bryce could definitely speak to on some level, but maybe Roberto has some points as well. So when we make videos and stuff all the time, we get all this feedback, all kinds of comments, all kind of whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty good at, for 48 hours, I keep up with that and I see what people are saying. I get kind of I get the temperature of the room a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then after about a week,
just in the rear view.
Anything anybody says about anything that's more than a week ago, I could not care less. Because to me, it's like if somebody goes back and writes up some huge this is dumb about anything in the past. It's like if they came up to me and said, "Hey man, you had all of these typos in your 6th grade English project," and it's I don't care.
Right.
That was forever ago.
Exactly.
So I kind of wonder what's the limit for you guys? What's the breaking point at which it kind of just doesn't really matter that much anymore because it's just you're so far detached from it.
Oh, that's interesting. I think we do 3 or 4 podcast shows here, and generally for those, I almost immediately am unless there's something technical wrong, in which case the word usually gets to me. I'm that was great. We did a great show, and the people have it. So for that, it's a very short window. Because we try to do it well during the show, and after the fact, there isn't a whole lot we do to change it. Mm-hmm. For the produced videos, the YouTube stuff, I'd probably say maybe a week or so, because by then
you're already working on a new thing.
I'm working on a new thing. The comments are sort of in the long tail period of anything that sort of trickles in is people who are catching it later, and for the big thing is we do the giveaway puzzles on the Friday videos, and so that's the kind of thing where usually for the first couple of hours after release, if not the first day or two, I try to at least make sure I go in and see there are people who kind of hint and wink at the answers and stuff, but then there are some people who just flat out write the answer, and so you kind of have to police that in a way that is a little more stringent than we would on a Scam School video. Because there's a challenge element to that people actually really like.
I'd be in the same boat. A week is about the time, especially when it comes to a weekly show. Even with my podcast, after a week has gone, unless it's something that's sticking in my mind, it'll usually be factored out and completely forgotten about. Not because I don't care. I mean, I know it's on my content because I don't get a whole lot of comments in general. I tend to watch it like a hawk and kind of respond a bit quicker.
But you have to compartmentalize it. At some point, you have to
well, because you have to almost, especially when it comes to a fan base. As big and large and diverse as Scam School is, that, you get the people who are like, cool show, bro, awesome thing. And then, of course, you get the, I missed the hair. Or if it's an older video, like, oh, look, it's a spiky haired, douchebag, which is always like the fun comment to see on any old Scam School video because it's like the reoccurring theme.
Right.
But then you get these people who are, and I think like one of the videos I remember in the past that had this sort of weird uptick of audience was the Rubik's Cube one, where you guys showed off the Scam School product for the trick,
right?
And that this like group of like supporters of like speed runs of Rubik's Cube or whatever just came in mass and started just commenting on how this is just something crazy like that. And
a part of it is you're talking about here it is, the I'm trying to remember what the name of the product is called. Solved. That's what it's called. Solved.
Right.
And you can see like 200,000 views, which is like super, super high for one of these Friday videos. And so I think you had a lot of people who were upset that the video wasn't teaching you how to solve a Rubik's Cube immediately. And all the SEO that having Rubik's Cube in your title,
right.
brings kind of multiplied that by a bit. And so there were definitely like reverberations here, just in like, oh man, that was like a little bit of a negative reaction, but that is, I wouldn't say that we've made any major changes in lieu of because of that.
Well, because that's not even with
that's more of an outlier than
right. But even with some of like the Scam School tricks, like there'll be outlier comments of people saying, this is not real magic or something along those lines. And, when people get really passionate about something, they tend to sometimes go a little overboard on things.
Yeah.
And also at a certain point, like comments and feedback stop being actionable. Like
right.
There's not really much you can do about it. And so it just sort of loses a lot of meaning.
Mm-hmm. Especially because you'll get people, like in the Friday videos, a big thing we get is, oh, the answer is Friday fun time for real, which is like in the opening text effect, that's the last thing it cuts to every time. Ever since we changed the name, it's always been there, and it's never been the answer. But there are always people who are in the comments who are like, oh, the answer is Friday fun time for real. And there was one point once we started doing the puzzles where John was like, people are putting in the wrong thing. They're putting in Friday fun time for real. How are they getting that? And so, you could go in every week and be like, no, that's always there. Or it's just like, those are maybe just people who are new to the channel and they're not causing much damage by being wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Demon5 says, Roberto, 3 years ago,
I saw that.
You said River City Ransom released in August 1987, but it's actually April 1989.
I probably did at one point. And the funny thing is when it,
it's like you have to weigh like how big what they're saying is versus like
in the early days, especially in 8-bit early days, I got really paranoid about that stuff.
Yeah.
These days I don't, because you have to accept that no matter what somebody, and it's it's a classic trope of the internet, like the well actually, and that kind of thing, and you have to almost accept that a lot of times you're not the expert on things, even though you may think off the top. Because again, when you're doing a conversation, you're like, if you think about your own natural rhythms in conversations, it's like, I think it was this, I think it was that. Maybe it was over here. Even if you don't know when that movie came out, just because that's not the important part of the story. The important part isn't when River City Ransom came out. The important part is, it was this, game by Technos with Japan and whatever and blah 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 blah. And I think the same thing happens, especially with Scam School, because a lot of times you have a lot of these sort of technical tricks or certain things in there, and you have this fan base that knows all the jargon, and then it's like that's not the important part of the trick. The important part is not the trick. The important part is we're teaching this random bystander at a bar, here is how the trick works, and here is how the mechanic works, and we're trying to explain it. If typically in a shoot, it'll be like a 30-minute shoot, but you're cutting it down to like 10 minutes, 12 tops.
Right.
And
so does that kind of answer sort of what you were looking to probe with this? Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Because when you write, at what point does it not matter anymore in the doc?
At what point does it not
Make
matter
sure you're
anymore?
satisfied. You didn't have
It's
to.
not that's an accurate descriptor of what I asked.
I suppose so. I suppose.
But
You
it
just had
sounds
very
more-
little
It
context
sounds
for it.
more like, Bryce, Roberto, at what point does it not matter anymore?
I mean,
When do you put in the towel? And it's like, oh, god damn.
maybe next month I will bring up that as a discussion because that I think I would have a lot to say.
Okay.
But
At that point, I'll say just play more Rocket League or something. There's got to be more to light. There's got to be something
I
left.
haven't been playing more Rocket League lately, and it's great.
It's like play
The
Overwatch.
new patch is great. Also,
get to Stardew Valley. I don't care. Just something.
I've been
get
playing a little
yourself
bit of
something to
Stardew
look
Valley as
forward
well.
to.
Stardew Valley is really good.
Yeah.
It is. It finally got its hooks on me recently. So
But yeah, I was in a ranked match the other day, and then we finished the match, and somebody was like, "Diamond brackets." I was like, "What? What?
oh,
What?"
Wait,
seriously?
they typed out diamond brackets, or they did the actual diamond?
They did
club
the
sign?
actual Diamond Club sign.
That's
and
great. Wait, were you back?
they were on the other team, and I was like, "Whoa, that's weird, but cool."
Yeah.
Hey,
I was playing with Nikon and console required.
Very cool.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was playing Overwatch. This is only tangentially related, but I've already started talking about it.
Yes.
I was playing Overwatch a few weeks ago, and I was playing by myself and ended up against a team that was the entire Drunk Kids Gaming team. Like, they were playing on a group together and had asked me to join at some point in the night. And I was just playing against them. And I was like, oh, hey, you guys. I'm playing against you guys. Oh.
I still need to get a copy of Overwatch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still haven't played it.
I need to.
Real quick, Jerry Fax asks, does the importance level of the topic/event affect the time frame of caring?
Yes.
I'd almost think the more it's
Maybe.
more like for me recent versus. I mean, obviously, if it's something that's more news related, I might care about. But if it's like content related things like that, if it's the more recent thing, tends to be in my mind quicker, unless it's some like big event looming in the distance. But something like coming up. Like before the South by event, like that was what I was like really trying to figure out. All that stuff. But if it's just like it just came out a week later, like my brain completely factors it out.
And I also think there's a weird thing where almost all of our feedback is like omnidirectional, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's saying, hey, I know that this is a problem that was caused in the editing workflow. So this is the editor. I'm going to bring it to the editor's attention because they are the only person who this means anything to and can do anything about.
Sure.
Right.
Instead, they just go, oh, this was dumb.
Exactly.
This dumb thing happened.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Well, 'cause,
just
like,
kind of
remember you telling me at
out
one
there in
point-
the ether, but
I remember you telling me at one point that you had like commented on a video once where you gave like technical stuff because the guy that
Yeah.
you were familiar with the content guy and trying to give actual useful information. And if you're able to give those sort of things, I think those comments, no matter what the length is, are a bit weightier. But typically the comments are never things like that. It's always, this is dumb, and let me tell you why your channel should be doing this.
Well, and
you
you could look at like maybe the demographics of this Game School channel, and it can be younger. It can be people who are a little more casually invested in the show and just generally don't feel like putting in all of the thought processes of like, oh, who should I direct this comment
Right.
to? Because they just want to say, oh, I didn't like this thing.
right.
Because that's as much investment as they have in it of just, I'm just going to tell you I don't like this thing, someone fix it.
Yeah. But if
There's got to be a middle ground, probably.
sure, and I mean, if they did come, my major point being, if they came directly to me and said something to me, like no matter when the episode came out, I would pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Um,
oh, okay, I see. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas if it's just some
Comment on
random
old-
nonsense,
yeah.
then it's like, well, I don't care. They don't care about me, so I don't care about the comment really.
Oh, nice.
Well, they typically don't even know who they don't even typically,
Yeah.
those guys don't invest the idea of like knowing who you are.
Sure.
They just say, oh, this is a show, this is dumb, trick bad.
Although it is kind of funny to me that so many people still have the idea of like, oh, Brian host the show. So he shoots and edits the show as well.
Well, because he's the face. And that's, You know.
And so like a lot of these ads, especially the ones that I do, have zero involvement with Brian, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't see them beforehand. He doesn't know about them beforehand.
Right.
And then so people are like, man, Brian should go work for an ad agency. Brian's so good at these ads.
There are many times after a Scam School episode goes live, that because I've already watched the trick itself, you know, when recorded live, and I've already heard all the things. Unless it's something where I was like unless there's like a really crazy drawing, then I'll ask about that. Typically, I'll ask Brant, all right, look, just at what time code does the ad begin? Because that's the thing that I'm like, or Bryce, the same things. I'm like, you know, who worked on this ad? Like, I'll ask the other one, I'm like, who worked on the ad this week? And it's like, oh, it's this one or this one. And I'll comment accordingly, like, that was an amazing ad. Because especially like both of you guys come up with amazing ads. But I mean, at one point, I think like it's funny. I think you have like either you, Brant, or you, Bryce, have like a Google like spreadsheet with like just a dump of ideas for ads. I think
I've got that.
Brant,
it's
yeah,
you.
Brant
That's what I thought,
Yeah.
but I wasn't sure.
I
And
made one
I've
at
also
one
got
point.
like 3 lists on different list apps with a bunch of ideas. But
And it becomes because like at what point, like, and I keep telling you both, especially you, Brant, that like domain.com gets a steal from like the involvement you both you two put in ads, and any advertiser that was signed with anything you guys do just gets a bargain on any of this stuff, because like this is stuff that would like ad agencies couldn't figure out.
yeah, and I thought about it the other day, and it's like there have definitely been some like questionable ads where I've had ads where I don't even mention domain.com.
Yeah.
I don't even mention who they are. Just that there's like you're supposed to buy a website at a URL or something. But I figured that's like an acceptable cost for them to make, because really like when they buy sponsorship spots from regular people, they're looking for ad copy. They're looking for people to get their messaging points across and all of that stuff. What I'm trying to do is not that. Like, I'm not trying to have an actionable ad where somebody sees that and they go, oh, I'm going to go to this URL and I'm going to get a website right now. Instead, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build up like brand recognition in such a way that like recognition is the most valuable thing for any company. So if somebody's not going to see our ad and go, oh, you're right, I do need a website. I'm not going to change anybody's mind that they need a website right now. But the day that they do need a website, if they go looking for where should I buy a domain name, and they see like a list of domain registrars, if they see domain.com, they're going to be like, oh, I know that. That's that weird thing that Scam School does.
Yeah.
And then-
True Facts, the chat room says it's Brant recognition.
It is brand recognition. Yeah.
And I agree. It's because
Which is why sometimes we do things like this past week, which was super weird and super creepy and had nothing to do with domain names.
But I mean, it happens because like if I think about like half the podcast I listen to, like I know every ad, you know, Harry's or Domain or, you know, Audible. Like I already have a lot of those products. But if I don't, like I won't remember the ad. I'll remember, oh, that's right, I heard it on the RT podcast, or I heard it on Scam School, I heard it on you know, whatever other show I listened to. Like that's what I'll remember. Like, oh, okay, let me use their offer code today, or let me use that.
Sure.
So yeah, it has less to do with that. And it's always been the impressive part about the ads that we do in Scam School, especially you guys do, just how freaking crazy and bizarre. Like I remember the only one that ever danced the line was the Parappa the Rapper one, I think. Which, you know, I was happy that you did, just because, you know, Parappa the Rapper is an amazing game.
Yeah. That ad pushed back the episode launch time by like 4 hours or something because it just wouldn't render out.
That's right. I remember that.
Because it was all off my laptop and it was all like heavy motion graphics stuff, and oh, what a mess.
Speaking of capitalism, we mentioned this last month's episode about a video that was going to come out, and it has come out. You may have noticed a sort of compilation sort of trick video, 6 impromptu magic tricks that anyone can do. This is a video that Now You See Me 2 sponsored. And sort of commissioned us to make. This was the video I was talking about earlier. Where
this is the challenging audio one, because like while we're doing this live, while everyone's doing the trick there,
the loudest live band that has ever been at this bar was playing on this day, and it was like tough to just like hear the other people like right in front of you.
The funny
It was
thing
so loud.
about this thing is there's a line. He's not even in the video, but like there's something that Jason said during the video about like what the band and I don't even know what it was in context to, but he had said like this random line of "goddamn Mustang Sallies," and for some reason like that just stuck in my head for the entire shoot, and it was just like kept hearing it every time I heard him say it. It's like he only said it once, but because I'm hyper hearing everything, it just stuck in my head. But that was that was an interesting shoot because that was the first time I think we had done anything that wasn't Scam School related. Or at least I had, because I typically just do Scam School stuff, and it was this shoot like where it's like, yeah, we're gonna do these 6 impromptu tricks for this. I'm like, oh wow, okay.
I mean, it definitely wasn't Scam School, but the motions of a Scam School were
For sure.
pretty much there. Part of the reason I kind of, I really like the format and kind of the way that we shot this, where it was incredibly fast and just like, here's a trick, and we're gonna do the pickups on it immediately. And we ended up doing these 6 different tricks in about the time it would take us to shoot 2 or 3 episodes, maybe, just depending. I don't know if you have any opinions on just kind of the way that shoot went, as far as like filming magic.
Honestly, like that whole thing was kind of a fever dream for me because I was coming off 4 hours of sleep and I'd worked like a 20-hour workday before that. So I barely remember it.
If I remember, Brant, you came in with like literally like shades and aviators, if you will, just like
I had just woken up like minutes beforehand. It was a lot like a Scam School episode or 2, just kind of like back to back. It was very much like a Scam School episode in that I didn't really know everything that we were filming beforehand, and then we just kind of went at it. We got more pickups than usual.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
I think that was the big thing, is that we were very pickup heavy and less like focusing on, now you're going to perform it for me. And
it was
have the pageantry.
It was a lot less like reactionary and stuff.
Yeah, I think the advantage of that shoot and why is that it was all friendlies. It was all people that it was
Sure.
John Tilton and his wife, and it made for, because they've been part of the show and they know sort of the flow of things. It made things quicker and faster. We didn't have to sort of teach. I mean, teaching the trick is always difficult in general, but because these people were familiar with the show, it just was that. It wasn't, and also tricks that had in some cases had been shown prior to the episode, so a lot of times it was easy to sort of get to the gist of these tricks, because we're not trying to entertain for like a 1 episode stint, but more of this is a very bite-sized chunk.
Yeah. Well, and I think just kind of the way we sort of approached that shoot and being very pickup heavy and being kind of a very lean sort of structure, I think I was really proud of the way the video came out, and I think it ended up looking really nice and is very like is also pretty easy to watch. Like, it is about as long as a kind of moderate length Scam School episode. I just I don't know. It was a thing that I was done with it, and I was like, well, that wasn't terrible, and I felt like I was doing something a little bit different, and what came out was something that if I was a viewer, I would really appreciate. And seeing that we're almost at 250,000 views, I think maybe that.
I think it was definitely. It was definitely fun, working on something sponsored in general, like that kind of thing. But overall, it was, again, it's just because it was this bite-sized sort of thing, we didn't have to. Beyond you guys doing pickup shots, you knew that this was going to be edited down to 7 minutes, so we didn't have to go into like the typical kind of motions of a Scam School shoot.
Right. I'm just saying, 2-minute Scam Schools. Think about it.
Also called Scam School Remix.
We're the remix generation. Okay.
Sure.
See, I'm just gonna go to the extreme and say Scam School Vines. That's what I'm just gonna cut it down. I'm just look.
Scam school Snapchats.
You look. You look. I'm
Scam
just saying.
school
Maybe we just cut.
Instagram.
What if we just cut out the whole thing and do Scam School Facebook Live?
Just
or
over Scam
Periscope
School.
it?
Scam School's over. That's the fastest Scam School. 0-second Scam School.
Yeah, I mean that's the most simplified version of it. Yeah.
Just more
Here's the
books.
trick.
Let's just keep doing
Done.
books. One more thing that came out. This was another Friday sort of product video, and who doggy was this? This was kind of a tough one. We had the Ghost Pepper Gumball product come out. What was this 2 weeks ago or so?
Oh
Sure.
man,
June
I've
17th,
actually not
10
seen this
days
video
ago.
out of fear.
And so we had a Scam School shoot lined up on that Thursday, and we, much like we did with the last Ghost Pepper Candy, took it to the shoot and gave it to different people who were there.
Yeah,
And got their
different people.
reactions. So like if you're watching the YouTube video, that we're looking at the package right now, and the first set is these young girls who like they're kind of taking it in stride. They are like, man, this is a very hot candy. And then this second bit in the package is our friend JR and actually the girl's mom, Dina. And they're just like, yeah, no, it's
Like,
whatever.
yes, this is also a gumball.
Yeah.
Yes.
She goes, oh, I mean, it's certainly the hottest candy I've ever had. And me, going into this shoot, I had the idea, I was like, there's a real good chance that I'm going to try this thing. I've never tried the Ghost Pepper stuff ever before. I'm trying to get myself into spicy foods bit by bit. I don't like spicy food at all. And so I see these things, and I'm like, oh, well,
Baby steps. Baby steps.
Baby
It'll
steps,
probably
yeah.
be bad, but that's how you get better at this. And so we do this third bit in the package, and it's John, Roberto, and myself.
Yeah.
Also, my hair has totally like lost all of it's friggin' curled out because I've just been
Right.
sweating the whole day. And we immediately crumble.
Oh, I crumble. Because like for me, and I'll point this out. I do like spicy things. I do like salsa. I do like that. But when it's pure capsaicin like that, when it's just purely hot, I can't take it. I have to just spit the thing out. I have to get rid of it. And it's just like that. And it's worse for me because like I'm so used to being behind the camera that I'm rarely in front of it. And I was told, and then John had asked me, hey, we might need some people to do this. Would you be up for it? And I told John, yeah, sure, I'll do it if there's no one else that can do this, if no one else is able to do this. And then, we started having guests come on and people say, and JR say to do it. I was like, cool, I don't have to do this. I can avoid
Oh,
this.
that's what you were thinking?
Yes.
Oh.
And then comes well, everyone else is doing it. All right, fine. Hey, JR, put these headphones on. Make sure that I don't sound too damn loud.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not mic'd up at that time, so because I know how these mics work, I'm like literally talking into one of either John or
my
Bryce's
chest,
chest, just to kind of at least have my audio picked up in some capacity.
Yeah, so like John ended up, or who someone ended up on audio. Brian, you can even see in briefly is holding the camera and laughing.
Yeah,
at us.
he was still mic'd up,
Right.
Because he had in the shoot he has like a hidden mic versus everybody else,
Right.
And so I was like, I don't have time to set this all up. Someone else, we had like all three mics going on or whatever. And it just became this like, just try it. Okay, cool. And then we just got working because we're still kind of shooting.
Yeah. So like my expectations of like this will be bad, but I'll live, turned into I might die, almost immediately.
Wow.
Like I started hiccuping.
That's right.
Violently, almost violently, to the point where I was like, I'm gonna vomit out all of my organs. Maybe. I might die right here today.
Right, I forgot.
And it, talking about the caustic, like it gets on your tongue, and as your saliva sort of coats your tongue when you swallow,
it goes down.
it goes away, and your tongue is incredibly raw, and talking just makes it very bad. Like it was at the point where I had to keep a swig of water in my mouth just to not be, crying at how bad it was. So
For me, it was definitely sugar tends to help. So I literally grabbed a Coke the minute I was done.
Yeah.
and it helped a ton.
you got to watch out with the carbonated drinks when you have spicy stuff, because that will clean your tongue, which actually makes it more susceptible to hot stuff like that.
Right, and what I would do, I'd have it sort of, basically what I would do is, in science terms, is I would drink the soda, let it sort of acclimate to it, have the have it hit a point where my mouth was no longer filled with capsaicin or something, and then it would heal. But it was rough because for me, I think I had either bit into it right away, or I did something where where a lot of people had sort of put it in the side of the mouth or did whatever. I typically put right on my tongue, and because the way those gumballs are, there's a coating to it. It's sort of almost a little bit of
powder.
a dusting.
It's got a
right.
powder
It's a
on it.
powder of ghost pepper goodness.
Well, yeah, I don't know that the powder was the ghost pepper. I think that might have just been cinnamon.
Maybe
But-
whatever it was enough. It was enough to cause it, because I already don't really like cinnamon gumballs, and I already don't really like the whole hot cinnamon stuff.
Sure.
And this was just sort of that times 11.
Yeah. So this is all to say, if you actually like hot, spicy stuff, check out the ghost pepper gumballs on Scam Stuff.
And
if you don't,
I'll say it's
be a
here.
video camera operator,
Right.
because then you'll never have to try it.
Sure.
Mad props to JR that time, because he was like,
I mean, JR tried out the ghost pepper candy too and had pretty much the exact same reaction then, if I
right,
remember.
but he doubled he doubled down
Yeah,
to make sure Brian had it
But
again.
I also don't think that having 2 of the gumballs would double the heat
No.
necessarily. So yeah, I think that's it. There was one last thing we wanted to mention. near the end of the show here.
So last week there was some vague talks about stuff we couldn't talk about yet, and this month we thought we would be able to talk about it, but we still cannot talk about it. So
yeah, that's
stay tuned. We're in a holding pattern.
Holding patterns, indeed.
we're flying over Newark.
Yes. So that's going to do it for the June 26th edition of the Bizarre Briefing. Roberto, thank you so much for being on the show.
Totally.
And waxing with us. Waxing? Yes? Does
Yeah,
that track?
that works.
Okay. Where can people find more of all the stuff you're doing?
Oh, I'm easy to find. You can either find me on Twitter at Vincent404, or if you just want to check out anything I tend to do that's not Scam School related, head to CosmicRadio.tv and just listen to 8-Bit Life. I've had both these guys on frequently, many times, interviewing, talking about all the stuff we talked about today, and then some stuff.
Yeah. And check out Cinematography with these 2 guys.
Yeah, youtube.com/cinematography.
That too.
That's CINEMATALKR.
Someday Brant will release the video that he's been working on for a long
One of
time.
these days.
One of these days. I won't spoil it, because it'll be an amazing video.
And then it'll immediately be taken down.
Probably.
Yep.
But you guys do movie reviews and analysis over there.
Yeah,
it's pretty
talk
cool.
about movies a lot. We do fun stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're really great videos that you put out too. They're
Thank you.
great editing.
We gotta make some more one of these days.
One day.
Yep.
Gotta do a movie soon.
Brant,
Uh-huh.
besides cinematography, if someone was like, "Hey, I like that Brant guy."
All right. Well, slow down a little bit. All right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, twitter.com/Gadwag, GATOWAG. You can find me on Twitch. I do stuff over there sometimes as well. Just if search Gadwag on your favorite website for connected social interaction. I might be there.
What's your Steam profile? How can people play Rocket League with you?
Add me on Steam at Gadwag.
That's the important one, because
Also, tell me who you are and where you came from. Otherwise, I won't trust you.
same thing with me.
That's why I
Same
add
exact
nobody
way.
on Facebook, because you're not allowed there.
Yeah. You can find me on
I don't know
Twitter
you.
and on Twitch at Brycas, BRYCAS. This show you can find at bizarrebriefing.com, BIZARREBRIEFING.com. We have a new website.
And it's so much easier to spell out when you can actually see it in front of you.
You can find all our past episodes, all of our links and stuff. It's a real great show and a real great new website. until
God, what if they got all the way through this episode and they're like, "You're a liar. This is a horrible show, Bryce."
now I'm gonna stop listening.
Send your comments to.
Yeah. But only if it's within like 48 hours of this episode going up.
Exactly.
Which won't be for another week.
Also
Yeah,
forget
sure.
about it the next week.
So
And make sure to address your comments directly to certain people saying, you know,
Uh-huh.
Sure.
I agree with what Brant is saying. Bryce, you're full of shit. Robert, what the fuck are you doing here?
we record this show on the last Monday of every month, pretty much at diamondclub.tv.
Approximately 2:30 p.m. Central Time.
Yeah. But follow us on Twitter. We tweet out when it goes live, so you can get in the chat room and all this stuff. Thank you guys for listening. We will see you guys next month. Bye-bye.
Also, shout out to my dad who's in chat.
What?
Oh.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.